In this section, we are going to cover stored procedure. So what is a stored procedure? A stored procedure is a set of structured query language statements with an assigned name which are stored in a relational database management system as a group, so it can be reused and shared by multiple programs. The advantages of using stored procedures are: number one, storing SQL code as a stored procedure usually results in better performance because SQL Server generates and caches the stored procedure execution plan when it is first executed. Number two, using stored procedures allows for better maintainability of the data access and manipulation code, which is stored in a central place. Number three, security can be better controlled because SQL Server permits setting different security permission for each individual stored procedure. Number four, SQL queries created ad hoc in code are more vulnerable to SQL injection attacks, which is a major security threat. Number five, having SQL logic separated from the code keeps the code cleaner and easier to manage. It looks better to call the name of a stored procedure than to join strings to create a SQL query to pass to the database. In this topic, we are going to introduce stored procedure. Okay. So basically, let us go to our Server Explorer. Okay. Previously, we have created three tables. We have TBL sets, TBL state, and TBL students. And within these three tables, we have data. For example, let's say that for TBL students, we can show table data, and we have this data. One way for us to store our SQL statements is by using the stored procedure. Okay, let me close this first. So this is the folder for stored procedure. So these stored procedures. So currently, we do not have any stored procedure here. Okay, so the first thing that we can do is that we are going to create a stored procedure. So highlight this folder within the Server Explorer, right click and add new stored procedure. So click this. Okay, now we will be given this kind of this is like a template. So in general, to create a stored procedure, we have create procedure. So this is the name of the procedure. So we can choose any name. So for the meantime, just ignore all this DBO, just type the name. Okay. Now, these are what we call parameters. Okay, parameters, especially if you create a view and suddenly you want to send a certain value through this view. For example, let's say that you want to search a particular name. Okay, you want to search from the rows based on certain student ID or IC number or whatever. So you will pass value through these parameters. So these are these parameters. So this is considered optional because only if you have such things, then only you need this. So we will look into several examples. Now, next we have S. Okay, S, this is, you must have this S. Now, these are the commands that you will need. So, stored procedure allows a different kind of SQL statement, such as select, insert, update, and delete. So basically, whatever that we can use for SQL operation, we can use stored procedure for this matter. Okay, now for the first example, let's say that previously, okay, we have actually used a select command to join these three tables and to display a certain output. So these are the commands that we have done so. Okay, so what we are going to do now is that we are going to store this SQL statement within the stored procedure so that it can be reused many times, either directly from this particular interface, or later on we can write ourselves a view and controller to access this stored procedure. Okay, now let us create the first procedure. Okay, let us give a name. So you can give any name, but it is better to give something that you can relate to the name. For example, let's say that now for this particular example, we select to join three tables. Okay, so basically let us just create a name for this. Okay, now I like to start a stored procedure with the name SP because it reflects the stored procedure. But this is basically is just me. You can choose any name. Okay, so let's say create procedure. Let's say I started with SP. Okay, now let's say that this is select join three tables. So this is just a name. So you can choose any name. Okay, SP select join three tables. Okay, now for this purpose, we do not have any parameters because we are going to display as is. So we have create procedure as. Okay, now delete this. So we want to start everything with a blank. Now what is the select command that we are going to execute within this example? Now here we are going to execute this command. Okay, so basically what we do here is that I'm just going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this here. Okay, now this is quite long, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to enter this so that it is easier for us to see the whole thing. Okay, now so we have select TBL student's name, TBL student's email, TBL students.student ID, TBL students.IC number, TBL students.date of birth, TBL sex, TBL state.state, from TBL students, inner join, TBL sex on TBL sex.sexcode equal to TBL students.sexcode, inner join, TBL state on TBL state.statecode equals TBL students.statecode. Okay, once we have done this, we need to update this stored procedure so that this stored procedure will be saved within this database. Okay, currently now it's not saved yet. So to save this, we click update database. Okay, when you have this, we click update database again. Okay, now we have this message, update completed successfully. Okay, we don't see anything here, but we need to refresh this Server Explorer. Okay, now you will be able to see this is SP select join 3.table. So this is the name of the stored procedure. Okay, now this part, just close this. Okay, no need to save because everything is here. Okay, without opening, we have right click and click execute. Okay, click execute. If I am to actually expand this, we can see that this is actually the results, okay, after we execute the stored procedure, and it is displayed in this result pane. Okay, let us look into a second example related to stored procedure. Let's say that we want to create a stored procedure for us to insert new row of data. Okay, so basically what we do is that go to this start procedure, right click, add new start procedure. Okay, currently we have this particular template. Now what I'm going to do is that I'm going to actually name our start procedure. Let's say that our start procedure name is SP. Let's say SP students. So meaning that I want to add new row of data related to the TBL students. So remember that when we insert new data, we cannot insert data into a joint table. So we need to insert into the tables one by one. Okay, now here I'm going to delete this first because we are not going to use select. Now this is the parameters. The parameters will always start with an alias, okay, or the @ symbol, okay, and this is a name. So this naming of parameters is similar to a variable, and this is actually the type of data. Okay, this part is added if you want to assign an initial value to it. Now let us have a look at TBL students. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is that I'm going to delete this. Okay, now let's say that our parameters will be based on the columns that we have in TBL students. Okay, here the first parameter, you can see here that this is index number. Okay, however, index number is identity, meaning that we do not need to input. Okay, it will automatically be generated. So we do not include this index number as the parameter because there's no input value. This is auto-generated number. This will be the first parameter name. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give this parameter name. Let's say I put this as name. So to differentiate everything, so I put this in a form of, I start with a lowercase. Okay, so now this is name. Now name is, the type is varchar. Okay, now this is varchar 50. So similar to what we defined when we created this particular column. Okay, name varchar 50. So this is the first one. Okay, now this is the second one. Now, let us type in the command. So this should be insert into TBL students values. Okay, we put a bracket here. Now, within this parenthesis or this bracket, what we are going to do is that we are going to put in the parameters. Okay, so here we have the command. So let me actually show you here so that it's easier. Okay, we have insert into TBL students values. So these are the parameters. So if this is too long, okay, for example, you can always truncate this, no problem. Just put this here, okay. We adjust this. This should be SP insert student so that it is more reflective. Okay, currently because we haven't updated this, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this. So now I'm going to update. Okay, we click update database. We have the message update completed successfully. To refresh this, go to this start procedures and refresh. You will notice that there is now SP insert student as the start procedure. Now similarly, we can close this. Okay, to execute this using this particular Visual Studio interface, we click the SP insert student, right click, and we execute. Okay, now you will notice that there is a list of name of parameters. These are the parameters that we have created in our start procedure. These are the data types. Okay, and these are some of other properties. So what's important now is that we want to key in the value. So we can key in the value here. So let's say that let us create one new row of data. Now, for the date of birth, okay, so we need to insert the values in a very specific format. Okay, the first thing that the format that you need to do is that you need to start off with a single quote. Let's say that the date of birth is on the 31st of August, year 2000. Let's say year 2000 is 2000. We put a dash. August is 08, so 2-digit month, dash, we put in 31. Okay, so this is the date of birth. So for the sex code and state code, okay, so these are the values for a new row of student, Alibaba. And what I want to highlight here is the date of birth. Okay, so the date of birth you need to put in this particular format. So we click OK. So now here we have the return value is 0. Okay, so this is actually the execution that is being done. So how do we look into the result? So basically what we can do is that we can go to the TBL students. We click, right click, show table data. Okay, we have Alibaba. Okay, we have the name, email, student ID, IC number, date of birth. Okay, and this is sex code and this is state code.
Okay, next, let us try another start procedure. So this time we are going to create a start procedure to update data. Okay, first and foremost, go to the start procedure folder within the Server Explorer. Right click, add new start procedure. So the template will give you something like this. So what we are going to do is that we are going to actually to edit this. Okay, now let us give a name for our start procedure. So let's say that the name is SP update students. Next, we are going to define parameters. So let's say that we are going to update the students based on the student ID. So basically, we need to key in the student ID. So then, let us choose one field that we are going to change. Let's say that we are going to change name. So here, what we can do is that we can type in a parameter here. So the first parameter just now is student ID. So let us give a name which is with the symbol at student ID. Okay, so this is char 11 comma. Okay, now the next parameter, let's say this is name. So we give the parameter name as name, and this is vacha. Okay, so s. Okay, now the actual command. Okay, now the command to actually update a row is update. Okay, update. Now we update the name of the table. So the name of the table is TBL students. Okay. Okay. Then we set name. This is the column that we are going to change. This is equal to the parameter. Okay. And now we are going to change based on a certain condition. So for condition, we put in where. Now the column that we are going to include in the condition is student ID. So let us key in student ID equals to, this is the parameter. Okay, so more or less this is actually the start procedure. Okay, so create procedure SP update student. So this is the name of the start procedure. So there are two parameters. Okay, one is student ID, which is a char 11, and secondly we have name, which is a vacha 50. So now S, now this is the actual SQL commands. Update TBL student, so meaning that update the table name. Set name equals to the parameter name, where student ID equals to parameter student ID. So once we have done that, we click update. Okay, so then we click again update database. Okay, now this is done. So let us execute the start procedure. Okay, let us look into this. I'm going to refresh. Okay, now we can see that this is the start procedure. Okay, now what we can do is that we are going to actually execute. Select. Here we have execute. Okay, now you can see here that it will actually show a screen whereby you need to actually add some values here. So basically what we are going to do is, first one, student ID. Let's say that we are going to change the name of Alibaba to his full name. So the first thing is that we are going to put in to enter the student ID. So the student ID just now for Alibaba is 5 0 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9. Okay, now the value that we are going to update for Alibaba, so the new name is Alibaba Kasim Baba. Okay, so this is his full name. Okay, now let us click OK. Okay, so basically this is the commands that has been show that the start procedure has been executed. So let us have a look at the actual data, whether this has been changed. Show right click on the TBL student, show table data. Now you can see that, okay, the problem is that no data has been changed. Why? Because just now we have mistakenly enter the wrong student ID. Just now I entered 50123456789 Okay, now actually the student ID is 512345. Okay, so let us try again this one. Okay, let me close this one first. Say we are not interested in saving this. Okay, we can close this. Okay, now we have this start procedure. Right click, we execute. Okay, now the value for the student ID is 5123456789. Now the name is Alibaba. Oops. Alibaba Kasim Baba. Okay, so hopefully this is the correct student ID. Let us click this. Okay, now let us have a look at the TBL students. Now you can see that this is the correct student ID, and you will notice that now the name is Alibaba Kasim Baba. Okay, this is why. So it is important for you to choose the parameters that you are going to use for the conditions, because basically normally we will change based on something that is unique, like student ID, IC number, and so on. Okay, because it is unique, so we will not accidentally delete or update a different person, which is very dangerous. Okay, now this is for update. Let us okay, no need to save this. Okay, let us create another start procedure to delete a row. Okay, so here we are going to add new start procedure. Okay, now let us delete all this. SP delete students. Okay, now let us use a parameter, and let's say that we are going to use student ID as the parameter, and this is char 11. Okay, remember that uppercase and lowercase does not matter, but of course we are trying to make it look nice and consistent, so nevertheless it's okay, this one. So now we have S. Now delete from table name. So the table name is TBL students. Okay, TBL students. Okay, now we have our condition. So where student ID equals to the parameter for student ID. Okay, now this is actually the command. Okay, so if you want to make it look nicer, so we can put this as uppercase, but it does not make any difference actually. Okay, so let's say that this is what we intend to do. So let me read this again. create procedure sp delete students. So the parameter is, there's only one parameter, the add or the alias symbol, and then student ID char 11 s delete from TBL students, where student ID equals to parameter student ID. Okay, now let us update this one. Okay, click again, update database. Okay, now what we are going to do is that I'm going to go to the sp delete student. Okay, and I'm going to actually execute. Okay, there is only one parameter here, so I'm going to add the student ID. Just now it is 5 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 0. So this is the student ID for Alibaba. So now I click OK. So once this is done, let us have a look at the table students, and we click, right click, and select show table data. Okay, now you can see that there is this number 10 and number 11. Just now Alibaba was number 11. Now there is no row for Alibaba. So basically this is what we have done, whereby we have actually in our exercise today, we have created 4 stored procedures. Okay, the first one was to insert students. Okay, and then of course there are also the select to join 3 tables. We have the update and we have the delete. So basically we have select, insert, update, and delete. So these are the 4 main SQL commands that you may be using, okay, in your work after this.